And I think that led to a great deal of the productivity we've seen. We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive. We had the vice premier, 2 vice ministers who were integrally involved, Ambassador Jameson and myself, and I spoke to President Trump, as did Ambassador Jameson last night, and he is fully informed of what is going on. So there will be a complete briefing tomorrow morning.
I want to echo the Secretary's remarks with respect to the Swiss government. They've been so welcoming, and they've hosted this, and everything has gone off flawlessly, and we appreciate that. And again, to the Chinese negotiators, Vice Premier Liu He, Vice Minister Li Qiangong, and Vice Minister Liao Min worked very diligently, and these are very tough negotiators. A couple of them I know from before and have had past interactions with them. And this was, as the Secretary pointed out, a very constructive 2 days. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought. That being said, there was a lot of groundwork that went into these 2 days. Just to remember why we're here in the first place is the United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs, and we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
Boy, 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 boy. So we got to talk about some news that is going to have the mainstream liberal media in total coat. Okay, the Chinese news network and MSCCP, they're not going to like to hear this, okay, which is that the trade talks that are currently going on between the Trump administration, Scott Bessent, okay, and Jamison Greer, who is also on the trade team, it seems like the trade talks with China are going well, okay? Now, this comes after the U.S. and the U.K. struck a breakthrough trade deal. The mainstream liberal media, they were boo-hoo-whining and crying, begging, when is Trump going to get a trade deal? He doesn't have any trade deals. He needs a trade deal now, right? This is what they were saying. He gets a trade deal with the U.K., and then they're like, oh, well, this trade deal was rushed. It's just the UK. It doesn't matter. Now, what are they going to say now when it comes to the fact that the Trump administration is announcing that, yeah, our trade talks with China are going well. In fact, President Trump says, listen, this is a reset, okay? We're trying to get fair trade, not free trade, because free trade doesn't exist, really, right? We're trying to get fair trade with China. President Trump says a very good meeting today with China in Switzerland. Many things discussed, much agreed to. A total reset negotiated in a friendly but constructive manner. We want to see for the good of both China and the U.S. and opening up of China to American business. Great progress made. Yeah, I mean, again, this is common sense stuff. I told you guys, President Trump is trying to open markets, right? That's what he's trying to do, okay? He's trying to help us manufacture and produce more by having other countries buy more of our stuff, right? And that's essentially what's happening here, okay? Of course, you know, the Chinese news network is skeptical of the Trump administration and their trade negotiations with China. Take a look.
Now is Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. I want to start with what President Trump said on social media, that there was much agreed to in negotiations on Saturday. What were some of the things that they agreed on in these talks in Switzerland?
Well, first, I just have to wish you a happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
What a great day to be alive, and I want to wish my wife a happy Mother's Day as well. The team is in Switzerland meeting with their counterparts from China, and they are hard at it. There's a lot to accomplish. There's both a lot to take care of and get off the table, and they're working hard at it. At the end of the day, they felt good. The president felt good, and I'm going to leave it to them. But it felt good yesterday. The president tweeted that out and truthed that out. But things feel really good.
Well, he said even more than that, as you saw. The president said there was a total reset. So did something fundamentally change, or is he sort of saying that to try to encourage the talks to continue?
Well, I'm leaving it to the trade team. You know, they're there right now. They're in the room right now. So I'm just going to leave it to them to take care of that themselves. And but they felt good yesterday, and that was really uplifting. I mean, what a day yesterday. I mean, ceasefire in India and Pakistan. I mean, how wonderful is that? Think of the lives. The United States, J.D. Vance and Senator Marco Rubio got involved. The president was involved. I mean, how wonderful to cause a ceasefire all the way on the other side of the world. Wonderful, wonderful day for Mother's Day.
Yeah, definitely a lot going on. I just one other question, and I completely understand where you are, that it's the Secretary of the Treasury who is over there. But do you have any sense, I know you're in touch with them, if China has made any concessions?
I want to leave it to the team to take care of that. I mean, this is really important for the United States. It's really important to China. Let's let the team take care of that. And they're hard at it right now, and everybody's rooting for them from both sides. But I think we're optimistic that things will work out well.
Okay. As the Secretary of Commerce, I do want to ask about the fact that there are no ships carrying goods from China bound for the West Coast right now. President Trump said earlier this week that drops in imports is actually a good thing because it's going to affect people's wallets and jobs. Well, he said it's a good thing because it shows that the imports that the tariffs are working. But in reality, it's going to affect people's wallets and jobs. Truck drivers, port workers, American consumers. So my question for you is, how is that a good thing?
Well, I think the point that the president makes with his tariffs is that America has a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. That means other people are selling us goods that more than we are selling them. And that's just not balanced. It's not fair. We're losing $1.2 trillion a year, of which directly and indirectly to China, that's about $1 trillion. You know, China sells goods to Vietnam. Vietnam repackages them and sells them to us. So the idea is the president wants balanced and fair trade, and tariffs are the tool to create balanced and fair trade. It's just unsustainable for $1.2 trillion to be exported to the rest of the world, meaning our money is going to the rest of the world. It's building them up. And over time, it's taken us down, and the president's here to fix it. So that's what he's trying to do with his tariffs.
And I understand what you're talking about with regard to sort of economic policy, but there's economic policy and then there's how people in the United States actually feel and the immediate effect on them. So just to be clear, are you saying that ultimately fixing what the president sees as a problem, which you just described, is going to mean that the American people, whether they work at a port or whether they're truck drivers or whether they're consumers, they're just going to have to suffer in the short term, maybe even longer?
No. Let's take a look at the UK deal we announced on Thursday, right? We opened the opportunity for Americans to export to the United Kingdom $5 billion more than they've ever had the right before. You had beef, ethanol, row crops, vegetables, fruits, cereals, sodas, machinery. I mean, just the list goes on and on. So the idea for the president is, look, we published our rates on Liberation Day. Negotiate with us, bring those rates down by opening your markets to Americans who can export. So what's going to happen is we're going to have imports. Of course, our ports, we are the consumer of the world. I mean, we consume $20 trillion worth of stuff.
But
the world
that is
wants
stopping
to sell
now.
us stuff.
But it's not happening now because
It's
of the president's tariff
stopping.
policies.
No. It's only stopping. Look, we are in a negotiation with China. We agree. It has stopped 145% on China. Of course that stops it. But they're negotiating that right now. That we are optimistic that will open. But what the president's tariff policy is let's open all the markets in the world that have been closed to us. Let's get that opportunity for Americans to export to them. Let's really, really help Americans export. And of course, those people who import are going to have great businesses. We are the greatest economy in the world. Everybody wants to come here. As the president likes to say, everybody likes to shop here with our consumers, and it's going to work out great. The UK shows you how great it can really be.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? Listen to how skeptical and negative these people are, right? Because these people are actively rooting against the president of the United States. They're rooting against America. They would rather see America lose than for President Trump to win, okay? That's exactly what's happening here, okay? So let's continue our coverage of the China News Network being upset about President Trump's trade strategy working, because that's what's happening right now. It's working. These same people told us that China doesn't need to come to the table, right? This is what they said, right? That Xi Jinping didn't care, that these tariffs aren't hurting China at all. But now all of a sudden, not only is China negotiating, but also on top of that, we're making substantial progress on the talks, right? Like, I'm just saying, everything these people said is not happening, right? Everything they said was not true, right? And I kept trying to tell you guys from the beginning, I was like, these people are not telling you what is likely going to happen. They're telling you what they want to happen, right? This is why they've been wrong on literally everything, right? But they continue to be skeptical despite the fact that, again, they've been wrong time and time again. And one of the main things they were wrong about is this idea that, well, China wasn't going to come to the table unless President Trump completely folds. He didn't completely fold, and they came to the table.
The UK agreement, you were the lead negotiator there, aside from the president, of course. And it does, you mentioned some of the aspects of it, but one other aspect is that it keeps in place a 10% across the board tariff on goods imported to the U.S. from the UK. As you know, the cost of tariffs are paid by American consumers. We've been talking about this. So should Americans be prepared? I disagree with
that, you know.
Well, okay. But most economists, I would say, disagree with you on that, and we have seen it being passed off time and time again to the American consumer. But regardless of that, just on the policy, this is what I want to ask you about. Is the 10% tariff that we're seeing in the framework for the UK going to be in place for the foreseeable future?
So we do expect a 10% baseline tariff be in place for the foreseeable future, but don't buy the silly arguments that the U.S. consumer pays. Businesses, their job is to try to sell to the American consumer. And domestically produced products are not going to have that tariff. So the foreigners are going to finally have to compete. They're going to have to compete. What happens is the businesses and the countries primarily eat the tariff. Look, we have 25% tariffs that were set under President Trump's first term. I don't hear a single word, not a single word about those tariffs. No consumers in America, those were set in 2017 and 2018. No consumers in America sit here complaining about those tariffs.
Well, prices have gone up for lots of reasons.
Oh, no. Don't talk about the Biden inflation. That's another whole gig. When President Trump in 2019 had the lowest inflation in history. So you know that this works really, really well. It works well. These countries and the businesses have to compete. Yeah. They have to cut prices. You've seen it. The Asians have said they're not raising their prices. So who's paying those tariffs? The governments and the companies. They want to compete in the greatest store in the world.
But you well know that company.
Yeah, so you see what this woman tried to do here, right? You see what she tried to do? She tried to sneak in this, prices have gone up, right? In response to Howard Lutnick stating that the fact is that you people keep claiming that tariffs lead to price increases, but yet the tariffs that President Trump put on China in his first administration that Biden kept, right, and then doubled down on, by the way. They forget to mention that, right? Where was all the outrage about putting tariffs on China when Biden was expanding the Trump policy, right? It shows you how much these people are hypocrites, and this is why I say you don't believe anything these people say, because they never had these same concerns about the Biden administration, right? They never had any concerns about inflation when Biden was money printing. Now, all of a sudden, they're concerned about inflation when it comes to these tariffs, but I've never heard these people ever be concerned about inflation when it comes to what actually causes inflation, which, again, is excessive money printing and government spending. And also on top of that, when Democrats come out here and propose, quote unquote, taxing the rich or increasing taxes, I've never heard these people say that's inflationary, right? Tariffs are the only taxes I've ever heard them say are inflationary. Every other tax that Democrats propose, they never say, well, this can lead to inflation. Again, it's funny how that works. The Biden administration and his economic policies were disastrous for this country, but where was the concern? Where was the skepticism from the mainstream liberal media that they now have with the Trump administration? Again, that is the issue. But again, you see what she tried to do. She tried to basically connect Biden's inflation to President Trump's tariffs on China, and that's just not true. In President Trump's first administration, despite his tariffs, we did not have the inflation that we have right now. That's just a fact, right? That's just a stone cold fact. And also, when it comes to this question about who, quote unquote, pays the tariffs, well, again, it just kind of depends, right? Because some producers, depending on the market, right? For example, if you have a market where demand is inelastic, like, for example, luxury goods, you have these rich people that are willing to pay whatever price for what they want, right? Some foreign automobile or something like that. Then, yeah, I mean, they're going to just pass on the prices directly because the consumer will pay it. But in industries where demand is more elastic, aka consumers are more sensitive to price increases, they just can't, quote unquote, pass on the price, right? The producer likely is going to have to eat all of it, at least not some of that tariff, either through having the government subsidize the industry, or they're going to have to cut prices, okay, in order to make up for the loss of revenue from the tariff. So again, that is kind of how it works, right? It just depends on the industry. The answer is not black and white, and that's the truth. However, they want the answer to be black and white because they believe that the American people are ignorant, right? They want you to just think that tariff's bad no matter what. However, that argument never applies to any other country outside of the United States of America. It's just fascinating how that works.
After company, business after business have said that they're going to pass it off to the consumer. I want to ask, because you are working on other deals, of course, many of them outside of what has happened and is happening with the UK. Is that 10% tariff kind of a baseline in the way you're approaching these other countries that you're negotiating with?
Yes, we will not go below 10%. That is just not a place we're going to go. We will, country by country, address their particular issues. So, for instance, with steel and aluminum and aircraft parts, we said those could come into the country tariff-free, right? So Rolls-Royce engines could go on a Boeing jet that Boeing sells. And of course, you saw that Boeing announced a $10 billion deal to sell those Boeing aircraft with Rolls-Royce engines to British Airways. So that's an example how we're going to be flexible and we're going to be super smart country by country. But at least you saw the rates that were published on Liberation Day. Those countries can take those rates down if they open their markets to Americans to export. Let Americans get their stuff on these foreign governments and foreign consumers' shelves, and we'll be better as a country. I think what's happened is we just have never felt the fairness of our ability to export. Finally, the President of the United States is on our side, and that's what you're going to see in the UK, and then country after country. We're going to announce, like we did with the UK, how many tens of billions of dollars of new opportunity the President is negotiating for American small businesses and medium-sized businesses to sell their products overseas. That's the golden age that's coming, and everybody else is going to build in America to get around that tariff. Remember, there's no tariff if you build it in America.
The entire world is hoping that what you are saying does come true and waiting for the next step.
Well, I mean, it is coming true, right? It is coming true. That's the part about this that I think these people don't want to accept, is the fact that this is working, right? Like, it's clearly working, okay? The markets are saying that it's working. You have us coming to a trade agreement with the UK. We now in negotiations with China, even though they said that China's not going to come to the table. China's not going to come to the table unless President Trump folds completely, but clearly that didn't happen. They are at the table because they can't sell anything in the United States of America, okay? They have mass shutdowns of their factories, mass unemployment. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem for China, right? Their whole economy is based off producing cheap things for the United States to buy, and if they can't sell stuff to us, then yeah, they're going to be hurting. Which is why they've come to the table, which is why they are negotiating. Despite telling their own people, we will never negotiate with the United States of America, right? They're bullies, right? We will never fold. They're clearly folding, right? They're folding hard, especially according to the standards that the mainstream liberal media set, which is that they are the stronger country, they have more leverage, that nobody's going to negotiate with Trump, everybody hates Trump, and the world is coalescing around China. If that was the case, why is China negotiating? Why are they negotiating? If the world is now relying on China, right? They're now wanting to work with China or the United States of America. Why are they negotiating? Why are they at the table? Why? Again, these people are liars. They're rooting against America. They want us to fail. That's what they're rooting for. Because if we fail, that means Trump failed, right? And they, again, would love to see America fail if that means Trump fails, right? They don't want to see America win if that means Trump wins. Again, it is shameful what the media has become over the last month. Okay? I've never seen this type of treason just open in public. Like, they're rooting against this country. And that's the crazy part about it. President Trump stuck to his guns despite all the pressure from domestic media to fold, right? It's crazy how that works. It's almost as if they know what they're doing, right? That this is not random. They're not just shooting at the hip, right? Like, they're doing what they believe they can do in order to reorganize and rebalance trade. And this is what they're doing. The plan is clearly coming together. So, again, I'm just saying, you know, we'll see what happens, right? But the markets, if they continue to go higher, again, at what point is the media going to say that Trump was right? Okay, or are they going to say, oh, well, the markets don't reflect the economy, right? Even though they was telling us how the economy is collapsing because the stock market dipped, right? So, you know, it's just funny how it works. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. What you can see is that they are opposition, right? The media and the Democrat Party, they're in opposition to the United States of America prospering, okay? It's really shameful stuff. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.